Hello, hello. I hope everybody was able to survive extension season. So back to posting videos. So today I was going to talk about how to fill out a W-4. Um, so this is something that I get questions asked about quite a few times when spouses work a regular job or they move jobs or somebody takes on a W-2 regular wage position. So this all comes back to time value of money and understanding how the IRS works. So a couple of theories that I have on filling out W-4s. The first one is the pretty much the same theory that I have with handling any payments to the IRS in general. The failure to pay penalty because you do not pay taxes during the year in which you earn the money is about 2%. So if you fail to prepay the government, you just take the money and you put it in an investment account, and it's usually pretty easy to make more than 2% on any investment. So you turn your withholdings or your quarterly estimated tax payments into capital gains and dividends before you give it to the government. So that's kind of the same stance that I have with filling out your W-4. And I'll show you how to, we'll walk through the actual W-4 here in just a second. So the first stance is I keep all my money to have more cash flow on a monthly basis. So you can write exempt on your income tax withholding on your W-4. And then instead of prepaying the government through income tax withholding, take something like 10% of your wages, put it in investments, usually some sort of mutual fund through like a Charles Schwab or an E-Trade. They're usually pretty liquid so that you can sell them and get the cash back pretty fast, just after a couple days, so that you can still access the funds to pay taxes when it's time to pay, but you make money on your taxes. So you write exempt with the idea that you don't prepay anything and you don't have any income tax withholding taken out of your paycheck. The next option is to just pretty much pay as much as you can that you're required to so that you about break even on your taxes so you don't owe anything or you get a slight refund. Now, where this comes from, your income tax withholding is actually based on regulated uh, and calculated tables for the most part. Like once you get up into much higher earnings, then you get outside of the tables. But for the most part, income tax withholding is calculated using the inputs from the W-4 and ran through some very strict tables on what businesses are required to pay for you. Um, there were some issues around 2017, 2018, 2019, right after Trump had passed his first tax act in 2017. It had significant impact on the tax system. And so there were a couple of years there where the tables were pretty incorrect and people were getting upset because they owed taxes instead of getting refunds like they were used to. I believe the tables have pretty much gotten to where they're back to how they're calculating things correctly so that if you just fill out your W-4 correctly, it should at least cover the taxes owed based on the income that you make for your W-2 wages for the most part. Not always the case, but that's the general idea. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share screen and I'm going to show you kind of how to walk through a W-4. Okay, so I've pulled up the W-4 here. Um, this is the newest one published for 2025. You just obviously put in your name and stuff at the top, whether you're single or married or head of household, that has a big impact. If you once you fill that out, if you don't want to pay income tax on your W-2 wages every time you get paid, then if you read down in the instructions, exemption from withholding, blah, 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 blah. It explains that you could be subject to penalties if you don't do this correctly, and they use fear mongering and all this stuff to get you to do what they want, but you really don't have to. If you don't want to have income tax withheld from your W-2 for whatever reason, then all you have to do is in this space right here, right below 4C, this open space right here, you write exempt, sign it, give it back to your HR. That's all you have to do. And then they're not going to withhold any income tax from your W-2 wages. Again, I would highly recommend that you take at least 10% and put it into some sort of investment, knowing that you will owe taxes when you go to file your 1040, your individual tax return. So just you keep that in mind, but at least your taxes are now making you money before you give it to the government. Then the other option is you just want to prepay to avoid any penalties and to hopefully get as close to zero as possible or even a decent refund. And so really you just need to read the line items, and it's a pretty simple form to fill out. So you put in your information up here in step one, and like I said, see where you mark whether you're single, married filing joint, or head of household or whatever. That's really the biggest input on how we calculate your proper withholding. Then you come down here and you say, okay, if your total income will be $200,000 or less, or 400,000 if you're married, multiply the number of qualifying children under the age of 17 by $2,000. Put that number in there. So if you have two kids and you make less than 200,000 or 400,000, put $4,000 in there. Multiply the number of other dependents by 500. So if your parents live with you and you're caring for them, or you've got maybe a disabled child that's older than 17 living with you, or whoever, somebody else, if you're caring for them, then that's what other dependents are. They're not qualifying children. They're not your children or your foster children or your adopted children. They're just other people who happen to live with you, and you're caring for them somehow. That's what goes on the next line. So you would just multiply that by 500, put that number in there. Add those two amounts together. That's what goes in box 3. Other income not from jobs. So basically this would be like, do you make some hobby income that you want to have calculated into your income tax withholding? Most people are just going to put a 0 here because this isn't something that's going to really come into play for your W-2 wages itself. But if you're going to have a side hustle and you want to make sure you have enough withholding taken out of your W-2 paycheck to cover that side hustle, then you would put that number in here. If you expect to claim deductions other than the standard deduction and want to reduce your withholding, that's what you would put here. Honestly, I would never put anything in that spot. That less than 10% of the population itemize anymore. Basically, you have to live in a house that's costing you more than $500,000, which is actually becoming more and more common as we have a higher cost of living and inflation has come through. So that might be something, but typically, like I said, less than 10% of the population even itemize. So I just advise people to leave 4B blank. Extra withholding. So this is where you would put in a number if you just feel like you want to give the government extra money. This really would only come into play if you're probably making over $300,000 in W-2 wages, or if like you have a spouse that is running a business and just and so you don't want to have it calculated. You just want to pay an extra like $100 a month or something like that. Excuse me, that's what you would put in there. Sign it and give it to your HR. So those are kind of your two stances. Again, if you want to keep all your money as long as possible and invest it and make money on your money before you give it to the government, just write exempt under 4C, sign it and give it to your HR. If you want to have it taken out so you hopefully don't have to worry about paying the government and hopefully get a little bit of a refund, Just read the instructions, put the numbers in accordingly based on your circumstances, sign it and give it to HR. So that's really all there is to a W-4. There's not a lot that really needs to go into tax planning or anything to try to optimize things. It's really your only two options. So I hope this helps people understand the best way to fill out the W-4 based on what they want to do or what you want to do for your personal circumstances. Okay. Everybody have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next Friday.